It's time for another ARC book review, and this time it is Cursed Boys and Broken Hearts by Adam Sass. So in this book we follow Grant, who comes from a very big Italian family who owns a vineyard and a B&B, and specifically on this property, there is a wishing rose, and it's believed that if you go on to the wishing rose and you basically wish for like your true love or like a sign of like your love or anything like that, you will find it. And when Grant was a teenager, he made a wish on the rose. Unfortunately, he now believes that that wish has cursed him. He has not been able to keep a significant other boyfriend for more than like a month. And some of his breakups have been pretty public and pretty bad. So Grant has been living in Chicago. He is very into design and, fashion and things like that. He just recently had another breakup, and this one was much more public due to the fact that his ex had it was a very big social media following. They had this really big art exhibit that they did together. So he is just really struggling. You see Grant's depression a lot in this book, and I think it is so well written and so well handled. At no point did Adam Sass shy away from Grant's depression or the way that he felt about himself or the world or how things were impacting him. But Grant is called from his mother, very typical Italian mother, and she nudges him to go back to the vineyard because apparently, as he kind of learns when he goes back, the vineyard and the B&B are just not doing well, especially the B&B. It's very run down. His aunt and uncle are just struggling to keep this thing afloat. And so Grant has decided that he will stay with them and help them, rebuild and redo the B&B in time for the Rose Festival. Now, when he gets there, he also notices that not only is the B&B very run down, but also all the gardening and garden area around it. And his aunt informs him that she has hired on a gardener, but she's being very mysterious about who this gardener is. Until Grant looks out the window and kind of goes outside and realizes that the gardener is his old friend who he was in love with, who in a way prompted him to go make this wish that now has cursed him. So to say that there's some hate in this beginning of this book with these two is an understatement. There is a definite miscommunication trope. I say that very lightly because I don't think it's a full miscommunication trope. I think Grant was very in the right for what he heard and what he understood. I think Ben kind of did do some things that weren't appropriate. That's for you to decide, but basically the two of them work together, and they redo the whole garden area. They redo this B&B. Grant ends up making a video and posting it on social media, and it goes viral. So they start getting like visitors very quickly, much quicker than that they were planning to have. So throughout this book, it's not only the two of them coming together and finding each other and, rehashing their past and then moving into like a more romantic relationship. It's also Grant really working through himself. He struggles a lot with his sexuality. He at one point really just did not want to be gay anymore. He was begging to not be gay. So he has had some struggles with his sexuality, especially his family. He's always thought that they were supportive, but as time kind of goes on and he's spending more time with Ben and really just thinking about like things his brother said to him, things other family members have done or said to him, he kind of starts to realize that they weren't always the most supportive. So he does end up having this really beautiful moment where he just kind of like tells his family how it is and how he's felt, and you can kind of see them start to change. So there's a lot of really good growth, not only with our two main characters, Grant and Ben, but also with all these different side characters that we see that come into their lives. So not only do we have Ben and Grant as characters and all these, wonderful side characters, there's a character in this book that I just absolutely loved, and that was the B&B. It was its own character, the way that it's described, the way that things are done in it. It just kind of became its own character, and I loved reading, and seeing how they go from a very kind of decrepit old B&B to this really beautiful, wonderful, whimsical place. And, all the way up until the Rose Festival where Grant and Ben not only, make sure that the B&B and the garden stick to their past, but they are also brought into the future. So I think the B&B is just a wonderful extra character in this book. So like I said, this book really handles a lot of mental health. It handles it very well. It does handle a lot of things like internalized homophobia, issues with your own self-identity or own self-expression, really kind of realizing that sometimes it's okay to let go of the past and move on and move forward. I think that's a really big thing with not just Grant, in his own personal life, but also his family, and them realizing that as much as it's great to keep this B&B as historical as possible, sometimes we need to upgrade things and move things along. It's a wonderful cast of characters. It's witty, it's funny, it does hit some darker points, but I think this is a really awesome book, and I cannot wait to read more from Adam Sass. Now, with that in mind, I will say that this is apparently like post another book of his. I haven't read that one. I think you can read this one completely alone. So I want to put that caveat in case you went to go look this up on Goodreads and you notice like, oh, I think it's like the second after another book. You do not need to read that first book at all. I did not, and I was able to stick with the whole story. He gives enough good background information from that first book that you don't even need to read it. So even though it does kind of seem like it's like a sequel from another book, it can be read as a standalone. So Cursed Boys and Broken Hearts does come out July 16th, and I think you should add it to your summer reading list.